Now, if you own a G80 M3 like myself, you're probably gonna need what we have in this box right here. Let's say you're thinking about running spacers, or you're thinking about lowering your car, or even already have it lowered, quickly gonna realize that you're running into some rubbing issues. And I wasn't even lowered when I realized that I was actually rubbing all my fender liner. I only had my spacers, so I know that a lot of you guys who are thinking about getting better fitment on their car are gonna also run into this issue. And what we have here today is the clearance plate for the wheel well liner from none other than Horizon Motorsports. They're the ones who are sponsoring this video. Alex, thank you for sending this out. They actually saw the spacer install video that I did, and it was actually right then and there when I noticed that that was an issue that not only was I gonna run into, but a lot of you guys who are thinking about running spacers or even lowering your car. Not only do you get the hardware needed that you're gonna need to install this, but you get this clearance plate. It allows you to cut out some of the fins that are on the stock fender liner. This clearance plate, which goes on the back of the fender liner, not only does it protect the cooler, it also gives a little more clearance, so where those fins kind of stick out this far, this plate kind of sits a lot farther back, so it gives your tires a little bit more clearance to spin when you're lowered or running spacers. And I'm gonna be honest, it does look a lot better than my DIY fix that I did for the cheap. I got this cheap metal from Amazon, which is just like a metal mesh, and honestly, I thought it would do fine, but now that I'm seeing the car after driving on it for a few thousand miles, I'm starting to notice that there is some issues with using this. And luckily, like I said, Horizon saw that video and we're like, you know what, we're gonna get you right, and sent out their own clearance plates. This is one of the easiest mods that you can do after the spacers, this spacer install, you're just putting them on. So it's gonna be a few, I think it's 10 mil, 13 10 mils across this fender liner here. We're gonna quickly remove those, and then I'll show you guys what you need to do to get that clearance plate installed. Let's go ahead and get this fender liner out. We'll get to the next step from there. Really all you need to get this job done is a 17 millimeter socket to get your wheel off. And then from there, I'm just using a 10 mil right here. Now here's a prime reason on why you shouldn't use the metal mesh that I use, and you should get the kit from Horizon Motorsports. A lot of the metal just kind of got covered by the mud here, or just caked on, and it kind of blocked a lot of that airflow that was going through. So again, it just kind of goes back to this being too thin, and things just getting stuck on top of it compared to us using what the proper thing is to use. So I'm just gonna rip this off. I just kind of had it plastic welded on here. And we'll clean this thing up before we install the new Horizon part. So now that we got the fender liner all cleaned up, got all that mud removed, normally you would see some fins here, fins going sideways and 3 or 4 going up, but we already cut those off. And the way I did that was I took a Dremel and slowly just started cutting all the edges of the fins off. From there, once I actually got all the fins separated, I went ahead and just cleaned up all the edges with a sanding attachment on the Dremel, and basically just flattened everything out on both sides. As you can see, that's where the fins attached to the rest of the fender liner. But yeah, now we got it flattened up, we can actually start mounting the new pieces to this fender liner. And the way to do that is actually a lot easier than you think. You're gonna get some hardware in the box, but once you have everything kind of trimmed down and nice and clean, you're just gonna mount this just like that. Make sure all the edges are covered. So it should look something like that. And now what we're gonna do is just drill 4 small tiny holes right where these kind of tabs meet up to the plastic. So we'll quickly just go ahead and drill those, and we're pretty much done. And we got a 7/64 drill bit right here. This looks like it's gonna be the proper size to fit right through these holes. So we're gonna chuck this in the chuck. Make sure that we're lining this up properly. Don't wanna drill the holes in the wrong place. Oh, kind of moved a little bit. Now that you have your pilot holes drilled, You're gonna get this hardware that also comes with the kit, and you're gonna have a nut and washer that you're just gonna send through those pilot holes. So now that we have the clearance plate bolted up, it's just a matter of installing it back on the car. But as you guys can see, when I put it down, you could see how it sits behind the fender liner, so it actually gives you a good amount of clearance. So the stock fins, again, would sit like right here or something. That's where your tire would rub on. Eventually they would break, make some weird noises, and then they could potentially even hit the cooler. So this protects a lot of that, and it'll also stop a lot of the big rocks from flying through and hitting the cooler. And obviously it looks a lot better than what I had originally. So let's go ahead and install this back in the car, and I'll show you guys how it looks once the fender liner is back in. It looks a lot better than what I originally had, and I never have to worry about my tire hitting it because it's farther back in the fender liner than anything else is. So now that we have that in, we're also not only protecting that oil cooler back there, or whatever that cooler is, but this looks a lot nicer. And now it's just a matter of putting the wheel back on and doing the other side. Now you guys have an idea of how easy of a project this is. Honestly, this is one of the easiest things that you could do other than the spacer install. What I would recommend is that if you're buying the spacers from Horizon's website, make sure that you guys just go ahead and add this in. It just makes a big difference, and it also stops from that pesky noise and then any damage to the cooler later on in the future accidentally. With that being said, let's just go ahead and quickly do the other side, and I'll show you guys the final product. So after a little bit of time, just got the other side done. Honestly, I did a little bit better on this side. I will say it is a little bit tricky trying to get those tiny screws through. So just take your time with that. Maybe drill a hole a little bit bigger than I did, just so you have a little bit more play within the screw. I think that was my biggest mistake, but we got everything tightened back up. So now it's just a matter of throwing the wheel back on, and our job is done. Honestly, this is one of those pretty quick mods that you can do on a weekend, on a random Sunday afternoon, and get it done with pretty quickly. And if you're lowering your car and you're adding spacers, you kind of have to run this. Honestly, that's it. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw the wheel on, and I just wanted to say shout out to Horizon Motorsports again for making this possible. They saw the video, they didn't like what they saw, so they helped me out and sent over this part. So really appreciative for them and Alex for sending that part over. I'll add the product link down to the description below, so if you're looking for this, you can click right there, go straight to the website and order it for yourself. And one other piece of good news for this car is that actually running these clearance plates at the perfect time, because we're going to be installing our new wheels on this car this week. With the new wheels, they're a little bit more aggressive, so they were going to rub a little bit more than the stock wheels were, and with this, now I know for sure that it won't, at least in that one spot. But happy that we're doing this now, and again, I'm excited to show you guys how those look on the car in the next video. Hopefully we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks again for watching. Peace.